Hello, hello. Welcome back, everyone. How you doing today? What's going on, people? Welcome back to another video, and today we are going to talk about Kobbie, Xerxes, the sell, the buy, the Semenyo, the everything, because we are truly already well into a bit of silly season reporting as we move here onto the second day of December. And already the conflicting reports, the noise, it's hard to figure out the truth of what's going on. So I'll do my best to inform, to clarify, and all of that. So that's what we're going to do. As a reminder to those, because yesterday I mentioned this, so I want to make sure I don't forget. As soon as I finish this live, I'll have a short video for the members and such as well. Not transfer related, but related to some other things as well. So that's what we want to talk about today is all of this kind of transfer noise going on, because there's a lot of reports. There's reports of United having to sell to unlock money. Stiller being the only option in January. Maybe they'll try for one of the big ones in Anderson, Wharton, or Baleba. United are ready to break their record signing deal for Anderson or Wharton. United are still in the competition for Semenyo, and quite a few other things, as well as sales of potential Kobbie, Xerxes, Ugarte, much more. So, yeah, we're going to get into all of that today. First and foremost, how are you all doing today? I hope everybody is well. Good to see you all here. Chris Burbs. What did you think of Berbatov when he was playing for United? I thought he was a very skillful player. It's my feelings about United players in general during that period are so positive because United were good. So it's easier to it's hard to even think of too many critiques of a lot of different players, simply because when United are good, you kind of see everybody really positive in that respect. But I thought Berbatov was a wonderful player to watch. We can't really afford to let people leave in January without replacement for sure. Hope you're well. Good to see you, Luciano. Yes, I hope you're well also. Simon, Reznov, Sammy, good to see you, buddy. How you doing today? So yeah, let's get into it. It's been interesting. It's interesting to see all the the debate. All the different reports and things going on. Fulham have gotten a third goal against City's 5. Been watching that as well as the Newcastle versus Tottenham game, which is something. But crazy number of goals over there in that City game. Well, anyways, let's see. Really uninspiring reports. I'm only going for one of Anderson, Baleba, and Wharton. I'm not so sure about just being one, to be fair, though. We'll find out soon. We'll look at the reports and see what everybody says. But again, it's very conflicting, and I think that part of it is, well, look, we'll get into it, but I think part of it is it's just too early. Noise about Gomez not coming. Yep, we'll talk about that, because I think it's worth understanding exactly what's being reported and why we probably should believe it now. Exactly what's being said, though, is important and specific. Berbatov was labeled lazy when he was here, since he was with Rooney and Tevez, who had extreme work rates. Well, sure, he was more lackadaisical, but, things are all a little bit different than they used to be. All right, let's see. Let's just start. Let's start and look at some of these reports here. Sell the entire club and raise the funds to buy Gaitan. Yeah, good point. That's a good idea. So let's take a look. So let's start with The Athletic here. There was a kind of that deal sheet thing, this Tuesday morning type of thing that happens. I'll be honest, I learned almost nothing. There was about 1 point of news in there. No offense, but it didn't really say much. At all, actually. Which I do find kind of funny. We're at this stage with United right now where they really don't say much to anybody. Like I was saying the other day, when you look at that whole big athletic sheet of all the players, if you just went off of that, United have like 3 targets. They're not looking at anything. They're not doing anything. They're not trying to sign anybody. You know, but we are. So, I think it's worth noting here. And the reason why I want to start with the Athletic is because of how the Athletic report and because of how some of these guys report, they really only say anything when it's like much further along in the process. You know what I'm saying? They really only report when there's much, much further along in the process to the whole thing. They just switch over to the City game because Fulham have just scored a 4th goal, apparently. So I'm just gonna switch over to watch that. 4-1. It was 4-1. Now it's 5-4, which is crazy. How's that? Whoa, that's a crazy goal too. That'd be nuts if they somehow pull this back after everything. Chukwueze again, man. Another player I wish United would have signed at one point. Chukwueze. Anyway, let's keep going. So the way that guys like the Athletic often report is they're really only talking about stuff when it's very solid, very confirmed, and very advanced. And I'll show you kind of what I mean by that, and we'll kind of run through this report and let's see what happens in the background of this Fulham game here, because it's wild. It's absolutely crazy. Give me just a sec. All right. Okay. Let's take a look here. So, guys, sorry, I just needed to look at something real fast, make sure I'm all ready. All right. Anyway, that's fine. So, let's look at this report. I'm getting distracted. Come on, camera. There we go. All right. Let's take a look. So, it says yada 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 blah 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 blah. Midfield is the priority area. United want a dynamic presence in the center of the pitch, a player capable of winning possession and getting the ball moving forwards. United may even look to add 2 midfielders, a number 6 and number 8, depending on what happens with outgoings. So like I was saying before, it's still 2. The idea that someone was saying is worrying that it's only 1. I'm not sure that it is only 1. Now, can we get 2 of Baleba, Ward, and Anderson? That's a challenge. That's going to be a challenge no matter what. If you're to say that we'd get 2, it would make sense why Baleba would still be on our list. But we saw even reports today that Brighton are going to ask for Caicedo money. I think that's in here, which is what it says. Insist on the Caicedo money. Now, whether that's going to change or not, we don't know. As of yet, obviously, Elliot Anderson, the primary target, athleticism, ball carrying, passing range, all of that. He is the main guy. We know target number 1. Adam Wharton, we also know as a significant target. But here's the part that I do find kind of funny. This is where we're at in terms of this kind of where it's a little bit like, okay, what are we learning here? United might look to do something in January, but it would be more of a low-cost opportunity. That opportunity word is the one we keep hearing, right? Rather than attempting any long-term signing. That being said, conversations will take place in case circumstances change. So let's take that section on its own. What is it saying? We might do something in January, but it's expected that it would be a low-cost opportunity, but conversations will take place because maybe that will change. AKA, who the fuck knows at this point in time, and it all could change by January, which is the truth of the matter, where United are at, what decisions kind of get made. They want, of course, 100%. What United don't want to happen is that somehow, it becomes possible that Anderson, Wharton, someone like that is capable of moving, or Brighton say, you know what, fine. Baleba, he's been poor. We'll let him go for 50 to 60 million right now, and we take him. If something like that is possible, if a bunch of clubs make an offer for Anderson, we want to be there, involved in that discussion. Point being, certainly it is not off the table right now that we could actually do something significant in January if possible. Now, all of our early checks into the major players, the names above Anderson, Wharton, Baleba, have hit a wall of they're not available in January. They don't want to sell them in January. They're going nowhere in January, all of that. But you never know in that respect. But yeah, it's like anything can happen. Anything can happen right now. Now, the one thing it does say specifically here is United are not anticipated to enter talks for João Gomez at Wolves. Now, I'll take this at face value and say that, as I say many times, the way that I tend to do, my reporting, especially outside the window, I don't tend to have the up and up on this. Sometimes once we get into discussions and during the window, I try to catch up on the details of like active negotiations and see if I can share something on that. I think last year was actually pretty good. We had really good reporting on the Mbumo situation as well. But what's happened here is, of course, United have looked into João Gomez. They have spoken to his representatives. They have assessed the situation of the deal. And what I'm taking this as is that essentially they've decided not to move forward with it based on what they've heard with regards to, they've decided not to move forward with it with regards to whatever they've heard or gathered from the conversations to say, we're probably not going to go for that deal. I would suggest the reason is the Wolves will be asking for a significantly higher price than what was reported out of Brazil. We kind of expected that might be the problem there because the reports in Brazil were presumptuous about them being close, about 40 million, things like that. We don't know that that's true, and I would suggest very likely it's just everything they've heard so far is probably not a deal that they want to pursue. So let's take that at face value and say that after United have checked on all of this, as far as Athletic are hearing, which I would believe in this case, they're not going to move forward with it. So it seems as though we could probably strike João Gomez from the list, unfortunately, because that's a damn good player, and it would be nice if he was an opportunity that was available. We'll see if something changes come January. United have a few games against Wolves, and who the fuck knows, right? But at this point in time, it looks like we're not going to make a move for João Gomez, specifically after exploring whatever we have explored. That's a bummer to me, honestly. That's a bummer to me. But I would strongly suggest it has a lot to do with, of course, the price that maybe Wolves are asking for, considering their situation. We've seen stuff about 70 million and all that. Maybe, we also know there's a situation where accordingly they've promised or spoken with the managers. They brought him in that they wouldn't be selling their midfielders. Who knows? So, it might also mean Wolves are not letting anybody go, things like that. So we'll see. But that's a bummer. That's a good opportunity. That is one we have checked out. But yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't look good. So the next thing it says here is that who will they be looking to sell? Kobbie Mainoo's future. The player and club would be considering a loan move in the instance of him potentially leaving. They'd get a higher value in summer if he puts a good performances together. It remains to be seen. Obviously, Ugarte will be looked at next summer. He's unlikely to leave in January, but certainly unsure if he'll be there next summer, which makes sense. That'll be 2 seasons. If he doesn't have a good season so far, certainly hasn't made a mark as a player that'll for sure be here next year, then he's likely to go. We know with Joshua Zirkzee, his situation, that it could change quite a bit. Now, I think there's an important point to note here on Kobbie Mainoo, because I've said this before. If you read that, it says the same thing as what we've discussed in the past with Kobbie. That maybe here's the issue: if he goes on loan, he'll probably be sold in the summer, right? And essentially, that's what it says as well. That it would be more likely he would go on loan in January. Good performances would increase his value for summer. If he's gonna leave this club in the middle of the season on a loan, it's likely that they're going to sell, because essentially they're going to have to look at, well, we've got to replace and build something for the future here. we want somebody to come in January if he's going to leave, they'll probably he'll probably be sold if he goes out on loan. That's why I would prefer that Kobbie stays, because I think it's opening a can of worms here. Should Kobbie go out on loan, that is very likely to end his career at United. I mean, I'm not saying no player can go out on loan, but, you know, and come back, but it's like it happens, you know what I mean? And they don't want him to go. But if it comes to that kind of situation where they feel like he'll get more time and play and yada yada, and they want him to be around to build for the future and everything, then, you know, that would be that. Unless they say they won't loan him unless he signs a contract. And that's an interesting point too. If he signs a new contract before going on loan, that might change that situation. But like, here's the thing about it, right? You don't loan established midfielders. You don't loan established players in your first team that you intend to keep and use. You know what I'm saying? Like that, you don't just loan them because they want to play more in over the course of one season where you just happen to have fewer games and things like that. If he goes out on loan, I think he's gone. You know, that's what I think. That's my read on the situation, as it were. The ideal would be keep him, new contract, all of that. But if he goes on loan, I think that's it. I think it's over. Look at Rashford, Antony, you know, all of those players that we sent out on loan. That was the end of them. So, hello, Jason. Good to see you. So those are my thoughts. If Kobbie ends up out on loan in January, I do think it's a strong possibility that it signifies the end of his time at United. I don't think that's what they want. I think they want him to sign a new contract. They want him to stay. They want him to play more. And obviously, knowing that this season we just have this reality, which is fewer games than ever before. Situation that they intend to rectify, a situation where next season, suddenly you need all these players. Every single week you need all these players. And so you're not really looking, it would be very, very short-term thinking, you know, to let a player go out on loan when you're saying, hey, yeah, we're going to need you. You're a part of this team. And we do have minutes for you, just not as much. But we've been over it. It's a contentious subject. Reality is, info-wise, if he goes out on loan, it's likely that he's not coming back. That's my read on it. That's my read on it. But the one thing I do want to add to this that I've said before, and I think people are really being not thinking through, is that people think it's just Amorim. But if you've kept up, if you've noticed how United are running these days, they're not making decisions based on Amorim. That's not how it works. This summer, they chose 2 players to sign that were not the ones Ruben Amorim preferred. They even signed positions that were not the ones Amorim preferred, and prioritized players in an order that was not what Amorim preferred. Jason with 10 more gifted memberships to the community, 2 to some of the mods. That looks like that looks like some bias right there. Oh, hold on one second, guys. Thank you, Jason, for that. Give me one second. Just my wife's calling. Thank you, Jason. You legend. Mod favoritism there. There's random algorithm somehow giving 2 to the mods as the first 2. of the 10 is, I swear to God, unplanned. Don't know how that happens. But thank you, Jason. Give me 2 seconds, guys. I will be right back. Sorry. I'm back. Anyway, we're good. So, yeah, point being, where was I? What I was getting at is that, of course, all of the decisions at this club, the big decisions, the squad decisions, the player decisions, the things like that are going on are not Amorim driven. You know, the whole line of thinking, the whole assessment, Kobbie, Semenyo, Xerxes, everybody involved in these decisions on the players is a lot more than Ruben Amorim. So the idea that City almost score. The idea that it's like, oh well, it's just Amorim and it's going to look so silly, and then Amorim's going to go, and then Kobbie's going to be the most important player in the team. It's not how they see it anyway. You know what I mean? And it's different to that. The whole situation is different to that. They all have a perspective on this as well. So, yeah, it's not the way that everything is being presented on a regular basis. You know, it's not like, you know, like when it comes to Bruno and Kobbie and the competition and such for that position and everything. It wasn't just Amorim why we kept Bruno. It wasn't just Amorim why Bruno has stayed as an important part of the team or something like that. It was a lot more than that. So, yeah, I think that, again, the way that the club is being run, we have to look at it and say, it's about the club as a whole. What it says there is, it remains to be seen whether club executives would allow him to leave. Not Amorim would allow him to leave, whatever the situation is around his current game time. Then it says, what moves have they made already? As well as the Baleba talks, United are aware of the picture when it comes to other targets. Checking in on potential prices, liaising to gauge a player's mindset, and adding to scouting reports is an ongoing process. So there's no news there. No information there. But yes, we know we're checking in on players all the time. We're checking in constantly. But we've also looked into all of those major players. But there's a lot more. But I would really like to see maybe some names being added, because we've known about Wharton, Anderson. Well, at least here we've known about Anderson being the top target for over a month. So I'm waiting to see if we hear anything new anytime soon. Oof, that was close from Fulham there. So yeah, but obviously, yes, we're still adding names. We're still scouting targets. We're still looking at all of it. Now, the next thing that that is interesting here is this, which I think is really, really good to see. Again, it remains to be seen whether a fresh deal on reduced terms is agreed for the 33-year-old, but that appears a remote outcome, even though he's a regular starter under Amorim. So I think this is a really, really good one in terms of what we need to hear, because we've discussed this a lot recently. Casemiro's got to go. Okay? Casemiro's got to go. He's got to go. That's it. He's got to go. No sentimentality about it. We can't sit there and say, oh, but Casemiro this. No. Guys, he's got to go. He's 33 years old. He'll be 34. Same age as me. I'm out of breath from just running to my front door to grab something and come back. Age hits you hard, man. There's nothing you can do about it. It's time to go. It's time to go. Okay? No reduced wages. just rebuild that midfield. But look at what that is telling us. Casemiro to go. Ugarte's position, very likely to be under review. Kobbie Mainoo's situation up in the air. There's a world where we're going to be moving forward, looking at 2, 3, even 4 midfielders this coming summer to rebuild this team. You know, so that is certainly a part of it. Harry Maguire, kind of the same situation, though it doesn't say much about that. So, you know, again, and then you look at, and then it talks about PSR, and it says we could have lost 141 million and stayed compliant. We didn't lose that much money. Finding the cash to buy players, it says, is another matter. But here's the thing. Ooh, Fulham nearly score. Cleared off the line, basically. Here's the thing, guys. We were ready to pay 70 million for Baleba at the end of summer. We sold Alejandro Garnacho at the end of summer. The money is there, period. We don't have to question it. Don't worry about the briefs. They are not, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about the statements. It doesn't matter. United have the money. It's just a fact. I promise you, it's just a fact. Again, it's not going to be the line they want to say. It's not going to be the line they would want me to say. But I have to speak the truth on this. Because I've gotten accused of so much PR over the years when it's been factual that they haven't actually had the space or the money, things like that. But I'm telling you now, they have the money. They even have the money to make one of these big signings if they wanted to. They've got the money. They could do it if they wanted to. From a financial standpoint, that's not the problem. They could do it. They have the money. So, yeah. Semenyo with no goals and assists for the last 6 game weeks. Any doubts now? No, but Bournemouth have been bad. You know, I was talking about this recently that I was saying the other day. Bournemouth have been really poor recently. You know, after a pretty good run, Bournemouth have been poor. They haven't been great. Their last 5-6 games is not good. They've plummeted down the table, which, you know, I'm not holding against Iraola, but it's, you know, every year you get some hot starts and then teams fall off. They never have the squad for it. And I don't think it has anything to do with whether Semenyo's been good or not. I think, you know, it's just an example of Bournemouth, you know, as a team have fallen off a lot, which was always going to happen. You know what I mean?
Are we looking at lower cost options? Garner/Adams, etc.? Or are those squad spots for youth like K1, Fletcher, etc.?
K1, interesting why it said K1 instead of Kone. But yeah, I don't know, to be quite honest. I honestly do not know at this point in time what in terms. I don't think we're gonna go for guys like Garner that we're not convinced of. Like, I really believe they want very, very convincing players. You know, players that they're sure for the long haul are going to be it, rather than that. So, yeah, like we have Orozco for some of these like cheaper down the line options and things like that. You know what I mean? He's just showing up now. That's one of the other things that has happened. Orozco has come through. You know, Orozco's come to England. He's ready, you know, to join in summer. That's all happened in the last 24, 48 hours. So that's good to know as well. What's the difference between paying 100 million for Anderson now versus the summer? That they won't sell. It's not about us. It's not about us. Gallagher's a convincing player. No, and I don't think they'll buy Gallagher. He might be available on loan, though. That's the thing. And then does he get a chance to convince? You know, does he convince? I don't know. I'm somewhat unconvinced Gallagher is real, but I don't know. We'll see about that one. I go back and forth from talking to people about whether Gallagher is actually like a genuine option at all, or it's just bullshit. I go back and forth on hearing about it, whether it is or it isn't. I'm not sure. I think he's decent, but they would also be, again, looking at him on loan to see if he will be an option as well. Is Orozco seen as more of a first team ready than the likes of Kone as of right now? I think so. Everything that I've heard about Orozco, and shout out to Sully on this as well. I shared this as well a while back, but everything I've heard about Orozco, the implication is that the view of him is extremely, extremely high. You know, the view of his ability and talent is really, really high. That Orozco is potentially somebody for the future. That is like, but right now could be ready to be in the first team, but that they rate a lot. Now, does he need to be a starter right away? Things like that. Could he spend a little time at the under-21s? Perhaps. But I think he's definitely viewed as a bit more ready, physically ready. So you take like Diego Leon, for example, right? Diego Leon is about to go on loan in January because the under-21s is not really where he should be. I think Orozco is a similar bracket where he might get a little time there to adjust, but I think they feel he's technically more highly rated in that respect. So we'll see. Gallagher, Gomez, for me, Gomez, but because he's in the Prem. Pretty much my simple reason. So we'll have to see. Obviously, he'll be assessed. Good to see you, Robbie. So obviously, he will be assessed in terms of when he shows up. But I think the feeling is more at a physical level, like Leon, he needs first team football. So it'll be like, okay, is that at United or not? Because I don't think he'll be spending a ton of time at the under-21s. You know, Kone needed a lot of more physical development. Orozco's ready at a physical level. That's the difference there. So that's kind of situation. Let's look at a couple other reports here and just run through it. So essentially what we learned from The Athletic, we might do a deal in January. It might be a low-cost option, but actually we might also have conversations that it could be a serious option, one of our main ones, in case they're available, in case we can figure it out. That's all true. Doesn't tell us too much, but it's all true. But it looks like we're not going to pursue a deal for João Gomez. And, of course, that Casemiro is likely to leave in summer, which we know has been the likely direction. But I'm very happy to see further confirmation of that. I think we talked about that 3-4 weeks ago, and I said that the likeliest player to leave this summer out of the midfield four is Casemiro, and it's still likely that he goes. The more we hear that that's getting confirmed, the better, because it's just the right thing to do. We've got to move on. But it's bigger implications than that. Because if Casemiro leaves for free, we're also very likely losing at least one of Ugarte, Bruno, and Menu. Like, at least one, maybe two. And why I say that's very good news is means we're going to get a midfield overhaul. We're going to get multiple players, and we need that in the midfield. We need serious work in the midfield. Any word on potential backup striker like Welbeck or something? I think it really depends on Josh, right? If he can keep up some decent form, during this little stretch, they 100% would rather keep him than buy somebody as a stopgap or something like that, So kind of depends on Mr. Xerxes. So a good sign from him scoring and doing that the other day, that matters. And then there's this one. Again, there's been a lot of back and forth about this on Semenyo. There was an exclusive from Sky Sports Lyle saying Tottenham are intensifying their interest in Semenyo. However, they face competition from United, Liverpool, and City. And I got to say this. Do I think Tottenham are going to get him? No, absolutely not. But if Tottenham can get themselves in the race, then United have to be there, right? Like, come on now. If Tottenham can put themselves in the race for Antoine Semenyo, then we need to be in the fucking race for Semenyo, period. We need to, right? But at the same time, understandably, maybe not the priority position or something like that we're looking at, because of course we're looking at midfielders, a central defender, a wide player, all of that, right? So, that's where we've said, well, maybe that's probably not where we're spending our money right now, and that's not what we're doing right now, and we're putting our focus elsewhere. But I still hold out this small bit of hope because we continue to maintain our interest in Semenyo. I still maintain this small little bit of hope, right? That I don't know, man. I just have this small little bit of hope that we'll turn around and say, you know what, we're gonna go for it. We're gonna be in that competition, because I truly, truly believe, that we're gonna be really, really short on attackers very soon, and especially next year, it's gonna bite us in the ass really, really hard if we don't add some top value attackers. It's gonna bite us really, really bad if we don't add at least another top value attacker. Look at next year. You know what I mean? It's going to be rough. So just going through those kinds of reports and things. Sammy with the 5 gifted. Look at the mods giving back to the community as well. Thank you, Sammy, my friend. Good to see you. Thank you for the contribution. Thank you for that. Thank you for the support. He wants to play CL football and not to play as a left wing back. Interesting. Well, no, I do believe he does probably want Champions League football. But I got to ask you guys a question, okay? Here's something that confuses me. Okay. Here's a discussion point. This is something that confuses me quite a lot. Number 1 baller, Sammy. Nice. Do you know, Marcus? No, anyway. Anyway, here's something that confuses me on this whole left wing back discussion, that I'm trying to join up people's opinions, okay? Because every single day I see a few different things, right? You get like, all right, when Rashford was here, one of the chief complaints from the community was he doesn't track back and defend, right? True or not? That was one of the biggest complaints in the United fandom, the fan space, was he didn't track back and complain.
Hopium, based on what you've heard, is he more likely than Gomez? Hope you're well, boss.
Yeah, it's still hopium, but we're still tracking it, and it's hopium whether we're gonna make a move as it's always been, but we're still tracking it for sure. And he is more likely than Gomez right now, since we've kind of looks like we fully ruled out Gomez, but we haven't fully ruled out Semenyo yet. 5 gifted memberships from Jimcito now. There you go. The mod's giving it back again. Another one. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you very much. Thank you so much. All right. So getting back. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Sammy. And thank you, Jason, for all the gifted subs today as well. But here's my point. Okay. When Rashford was here, it was like, people did not like Marcus not tracking back, but he was a forward. But now whenever you suggest a winger play as a wing back, you get, I don't want to see them defending. Okay. All right. Fair. But then there's another one. Then we get all these complaints about how Amram is an idiot every time he doesn't pick Ahmad out wide. Which, to be fair, we all agree we are a much better team with Ahmad out wide. Nobody in their right mind would have called Ahmad a defender previously. Ever. Nobody would, when you signed Ahmad, when we saw Ahmad as a young player at Sunderland, this and that, pure forward. And now we go like, so how do we join up all of these opinions? Because every time I suggest a winger, people go, oh my God. No way you're putting him at wing back. Respectfully, right? But then at the same time, people have these massive complaints when Ahmad doesn't play at wing back, but nobody would have ever said that in the past. So nobody would have said that Ahmad was a specialist one-on-one defender back in the day. You know what I mean? Like, so I just like, how do we, because we you know, there was a tweet earlier that was like, when we play without Ahmad out wide, all of our losses come without Ahmad out wide. And then I'm like, okay, cool. So like, we have to have more wingers to play out wide because we cannot rely on Ahmad being there 60 games a season when we're back in Europe and such, right? We've got to have more options. We've got to have similar players. So when I look at it, I go, do they have a good work rate? Do they have a good pressing ability? And are they physical? That's my only qualifications for a winger as to whether they can do it, right? Do they have a good work rate? Do they press well? Are they physical enough? That's it. Those are my only questions. And that's not about size, right? Because Ahmad is small, but he's quite physical. Those three things. Could Mbeumo be a wingback? Yes. He absolutely could. Why not? He's very similar to Ahmad in that respect. He used to work his ass off over at Brentford, tracking back and defending. He's the same thing. He could be a wingback, but we don't want to move him all around and all of that. Why could Garnacho not be a wingback? Because he has the defensive IQ of Garnacho. Okay. There's a work rate issue there in certain aspects, and he was not physical and all of that. Okay. That's why he couldn't do it. That's why he was never tried there. So that's my question when I look at it. I go, could they be a wingback based on that? So when someone talks about Semenyo, I go, good presser, intense runner, physical, get him at wingback. He could be a wingback. Cool. Then I look at like Njai, and I go, why can't he be a wingback? Physical, fast, good presser, good defender. Why not? That was nice from Will Tamada and Bruno G there. Why not? Why not? He could be, you know, in the same way that Ahmad is. It doesn't mean they have to be full-time in the wingback's position, because if we get someone like that, they could play at wingback sometimes, and they could play at the 10s other times. Similar to how Ahmad does, except when Ahmad plays in the 10, we don't have any attacking wingbacks on. So I'm saying, get someone like Ahmad. They'll play in the 10 sometimes, like a Semenyo. He'd play in the 9, he'd play in the 10. But maybe there's games when Ahmad is not at wingback. Then you have that game, you can use them at wingback. So we don't have two defensive wingbacks on both sides. What's wrong with that? That's what we need. Whoever we buy as that second wingback is unlikely to be at wingback all the time. Unlikely to be at wingback all the time. It's just not going to happen. But because we don't need to. But when Ahmad is not at wingback, we need him to be there. So, yeah, that's how I look at it. You know, is that's why we need somebody like that. You know, in there. That's where I'm looking at. Yeah, so that's what I'm looking at. But I wouldn't play Mbeumo at wingback for the same reason. Why? I would play Mbeumo at wingback though. I would totally play Mbeumo at wingback, except that it would just weaken us in terms of a forward. So it's unnecessary. That's all. But the other reason I wouldn't play Mbeumo at wingback as much is that one of his best strengths is running in behind, which is more of the right 10. But I would play him at wingback. I don't see why I wouldn't. If you know, right now we don't need to. It wouldn't make sense to. I do prefer players getting to stay in a position rather than having to be moved into many positions. But I don't see why I wouldn't play him at wingback. But yeah, anyway, that's it's just an interesting one. I try to marry up that kind of philosophy, you know, as to what's going on with as to how this all works essentially. and what we need, you know, and I feel like it could definitely work. Either way. But I think Semenyo could work. So again, if Tottenham are in the conversation either way, we should be in the conversation. He can play 9, he could play 10, he could play wing back, who cares? He could be in all these positions, right? Then you got a couple of interesting things here, which is says, if the United hierarchy can unlock some funds, the club could make a move for their key midfield targets. Elliot Anderson, Adam Ward, Carlos Baleba, and Angelo Stiller in January. Only Stiller seems to be likely and affordable next month. And then it says United will listen to offers for Kobbie, Xerxes, Ugarte, and Tyrell Malacia in January.
Anything from within the club about Frankfurt pound?
Frankfurt pound LB. Oh, Brown. I don't know. You know, I heard the difference between him and, I mean, I heard the idea that we'd been keeping an eye on him, but nothing more than that, like among a ton of players. So I don't have anything more specific to say in terms of whether he's actually, you know, someone they would consider right now or not, but just someone that they have scouted for sure. The thing to say about all of that is that United don't have to sell to buy. As I've said, we have the money. We don't have to sell to buy. We can do all of those things. Will we listen to offers for Kobbie, Xerxes, and these players in January? Maybe. I don't think Stiller's going to be the guy in January. I don't think he's going to be the guy in January. I don't think that's happening. It's not an issue of raising funds, though. He's an 8. He's not like he's definitely, I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's not a lot of evidence that he's the guy that we would go for, especially in terms of a January impact, and especially because where would he play? You know, where would he play right now? In this team next to Bruno, that's a disaster waiting to happen. When you look at the physicality, the ground coverage, the things like that, that's not going to work. Well, so Bruno's not getting benched. So what's going to happen there? You know, we already have Kobbie sitting behind Bruno. So it doesn't really make sense for a January transfer. I don't think that Stiller's going to be that guy. And then you're talking about bringing in a midfielder from the Bundesliga mid-season. And when you're signing a player in January, you're hoping that they can make an impact. So that seems like the least likely outcome. You know what I'm saying? It seems like the least likely outcome. It seems like the least... it doesn't seem like a player that, you know, United are really, really looking for at this point in time. So, yeah, I'm not seeing that one being the thing, you know, at the moment. And again, United do have money. United do have money, but whether they can, who they can get is more of the question. So we'll see, you know, in that respect. But I don't think Stiller's the guy. Yeah, and a January signing needs to be from the Premier League or Premier League experience, exactly. If Kobbie goes, I don't know. Then yeah, Bruno was a January guy, but Bruno was I think a bit different. You know, I think Bruno is a little bit different in that, in terms of the potential. I don't know. Bruno is different. It's January signings can make a big impact if you get the right guy, but they've got to really match up
if
some
you're an established
key
top
things.
Premier League winger, like Semenyo, you're very unlikely to be keen on converting to wing back.
Yeah, look, I hear that. But why? Like, I guess what I'm saying there is look at that statement. Like, what are you saying? What is someone saying? Wow, what a header by Romero. What is someone saying by making that statement? You know, I guess like imagine you go to a Pep team. Your role's changing. Almost guaranteed your role is going to have to change. You're going to have to do something different. You're going to have to play in a different way than you're used to. It's just different. It's just going to be different. No matter what happens, somebody like Semenyo at Bournemouth, he's already playing in a team that is going to have to defend more, do these types of things, all of that. He's already going to have to. So you're saying go play, at a higher level. But here's the other argument to this. The other thing with this is that one of the reasons that we have to defend more is because we don't have attackers in wide areas. We have guys who defend too much, who aren't good enough on the ball, that drop too deep. So it's all a self-creating issue. If you can't get attackers on the pitch, then I don't know, it makes a difference. But again, I think that when you sign a player, I think that either way, you're looking for, when you sign a player, you're looking for someone who's going to play for the club, not for a manager, for an exact system or something like that, or for an exact, for a manager. You're looking for someone who's going to come for, I don't know, something different. I guess I reject the notion that a player wouldn't want to join because they have to play maybe they're going to have to play a little bit of a different role than what they've been doing. I think that people change their roles all the time in football. And when you sign for a club, you always sign with the knowledge that you also are potentially going to outlast the manager. I mean, players very often stay at clubs longer than managers. So there's always going to be changes and things like that happen. Yeah, I don't know. There's always going to be changes and things like that happening. It's easy to say Quenda rejected it because of being a wingback. I'm sure it had nothing to do with the life-changing money and 9-year contract offered by Chelsea, by the way, as well as the ability to stay at Sporting on loan for another season and a half. So I think it's a little bit more complicated than that, why he turned us down. But yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But it's an interesting subject.
Do you really not see how being a winger at City is more attractive than being a wing-back? And I agree with you that we need a winger at wing-back.
Just ask Jack Grealish. Look at what Pep did to Jack Grealish. 100 million for one of the most creative, inventive wingers in England, and he turned him into a goose that had nothing because of the demands of a Pep system. How is that worse? How is that better, than saying, well, you're going to have to defend a little bit more, but you're basically going to play in the same spaces, things like that. Pep tells the wingers, there's so much that goes into a role at a club. Jack Grealish was not allowed to dribble, to take on a man, to do all the things he needed to do. Now look at him when he goes back to Everton. He's still playing a hell of a lot of... he's doing a lot of defending at Everton. Probably more than he ever had to do at City. But he's got a freer role there, and it's great. So it's kind of like you go back and forth on these kinds of things, It was a totally different role at City. And essentially, you're going to have that. It's not just about positions. It's about role. I think that Ahmad plays as much, probably gets as much into the attack and involved in attacking positions as most wingers in the Premier League. Same with Patrick Dorgu. We kind of talked about that, right? Like Patrick Dorgu is getting as many chances and touches in attacking areas as anybody else, And so I think, again, it's a lot more to do with I just think positions are made up and I think people get too agitated about them. Like, what are you actually asking the player to do? What's it going to look like? All of that. You know what I'm saying? I think that if you genuinely look at that, Njai could come from Everton to United and he'd probably end up doing less defending. Forget the position for a minute. He would probably end up doing less defending at United than he has to do at Everton. Simply because the roles change in football and it's really just about what's the ask from the manager. What do they need from you? So, yeah, that's a part of the conversation in there. And I think too much hyper focus is put onto the positions and things like that as well. We've talked about this with the midfield, with wide players, things like that. It's just that there's industrious, hardworking defensive players that can play out wide. And other than that, it is what it is, look at Luke Shaw. He's a fullback. He's playing center back. So, yeah, I think that's a crazy penalty Newcastle just got there. That's wild. So yeah, I think it's all up for debate, but maybe they don't want to do it. I don't want a player that says wingback beneath me. Good. Don't want him. If that's their view. I don't want him. It's kind of that simple. Like, I just don't want him in that situation. They should be willing to do that kind of role. I mean, Joelinton is was a striker and a winger, and now he's playing as a box-to-box midfielder at watching this game, obviously, just thinking of like an example of a player there. So I don't know. It's sort of whatever to me. Give you an example statistically here, by the way. Here's Njai. 95th percentile for tackles as a winger, right? He does 0.93 clearances per game, 0.89 blocks per game, 0.43 interceptions per game, and 2.25 tackles per game, okay? Here's Ahmad. Let me just compare those numbers again. So Ahmad does about the exact same number of clearances, fewer blocks, fewer interceptions, and fewer tackles. Njai today does more defensive work than Ahmad does. It's just the facts. And that's why I wanted to use like clearances and blocks, because those happen in your own third, not up the pitch. Tackles can happen anywhere. And Njai does presently more volume of defending than Ahmad does by a decent number. So what's the difference? You know what I mean? So it's just about role. I don't think it's a situation where a player will be being asked to do a significantly more defending. Here's Semenyo, by the way. More clearances than Ahmad, more blocks than Ahmad, fewer interceptions, and around the same number of tackles. So you could argue just slightly more. So he does more defending in his own third. He's 99th percentile for blocks, 82nd percentile for clearances. So Semenyo does, again, more defensive work today in his own third than Ahmad, arguably. Arguably, that's the case. Because he played exactly though. So it's whatever. You know, he plays for a poor team. Exactly, though. But that's my point, is that they're already doing a lot of defending because they're coming from a lower team. Yeah, you're probably not going to get, Vinicius to come in and be a wingback, playing as a pure winger for Real Madrid and saying, okay, you have to play a more defensive role. You're probably not going to get that to happen. I don't care, but that's why I wouldn't sign someone like him, But when you're asking players to step up, you're not asking them to step down. You know what I mean? What distance does Semenyo cover 9 minutes? I have no idea. I absolutely have no idea. Is there not a fullback in black and white? We could maybe make a left wing back. There might be. There might be a couple people in this Newcastle game that would be good options for United. We'll see what happens with their contracts over the next few months. But yeah. So anyway, look, it's all up for debate, but I think it's something United should try. All right, I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna end it with that. It's interesting. A lot of reports flying around. United got to sell, don't have to sell, things like that. What I will say is, again, I don't believe they have to sell to buy in January. In fact, I'm pretty certain of that. Obviously, selling adds funds, but they don't have to. Still don't believe we can get with some of our major targets in January. But I do believe United will be doing business. And I would also say in that again, I still believe if Kobbie does end up going on loan, that there's a really, really high chance that might be it. But so I hope that doesn't happen. I still don't think it will. But we'll see. We've got short turnaround Thursday, short turnaround Monday. Let's see if some of these guys get some games. Okay, let's end it there. Thank you for all the donations. Thank you for all of the questions. Thank you for all the gifted memberships from, Jim, Sammy, and Jason. Thank you very much. Please make sure to smash a like on the video on your way out. In addition, couple little things. The competition for United versus West Ham is already open because the game is on Thursday. Link is below. Go get your picks in over there on Big Up. I haven't made mine yet, but looks like there's some interesting ones we could get. It's been successful and a lot of fun. And a last little thing here as well. The Muppeteers store, there's 20% off everything right now during the holidays, so you can go and get some Muppeteers merchandise or one of these fun little dolls. This one's heading out soon, another Wayne Rooney. So you can go get your merchandise 20% off right now through the end of the year for everything. Thank you all. I will see you all later. Make sure to like the video, and I will catch you all tomorrow. We'll have a podcast posted tomorrow with Samix and Andy over with Football and an Edge. So that will be fun. And then we'll do a pre-match vote and all of that. Okay. Thanks for hanging out, guys. See you later. Have a good one.